invade your privacy here, but like you've had really mixed, like there are things that I personally believe that you healed in your body through energy work. But then there was that additional element of there is a toxicity to telling somebody who's not well that if only they change their mindset enough, they would be well. Because
Right. Like if
like
only you can meditate for 6 hours every day and like
right.
live on celery juice. Yeah. I mean, I have trouble with it. Yes, I do believe in the power of energetic work. I also believe in the power of the mind. Like I don't think any one thing that I did to feel better is only like energy work or only the work of that. Like, I just think there's like a really strong combination of things that I do to take care of myself now that I didn't before.
Before we dive into today's episode, we want to make it clear that the content shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The information, discussions, and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and contributors should not be interpreted as medical, health, or professional advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, nothing discussed here should be taken as a substitute for professional consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have any health-related concerns, we strongly encourage you to consult a qualified healthcare provider. Please verify any facts or claims presented here independently, as we make no guarantees regarding the accuracy or completeness of the information shared. Your decisions regarding health and wellness should always be made in consultation with a licensed medical professional who understands your individual circumstances. By listening to this podcast, you agree that neither the hosts nor any guests can be held liable for any decisions you make based on the information provided. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello, you're listening to episode 1 of Say Something Serious. We are so excited that you have decided to join us today. Say Something Serious is a podcast about big topics and best friends. Mindy and myself, Erin, endeavor to explore topics that are pulling on human consciousness through exploration, humor, and intuitive practices that facilitate insightful, helpful, and healing conversations. We hope to let you share in the experience of the intellectual and emotional expansion that's possible when curiosity and vulnerability are honored and anchored in the unconditional love and support of our 25-year friendship. Hi, Mindy. How are you today?
Hi. Oh, how are you? I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. I'm so excited that we're finally doing this.
I know. Take 3. Right? We've done 2. This is our first one really together. I'm so excited. Thank you for asking me to do this with you.
Well, thank you for agreeing to do it. I think this is going to be a really fun experience for us and hopefully add some value to the world and to the people that need to hear it. Basically, we'll be talking about some of the most popular practices and what would you say, like thought experiments that are happening in our time about how we grow as human beings.
Mm-hmm. How we live our most fulfilling life, how we connect deeply to ourselves and stay connected to the world around us.
I love that. And the intuitive practices part is I read tarot cards. So as a part of my process, I'll be pulling cards to sort of get some further insight when we maybe get stuck, or just to see what the spirits sort of want to bring into the conversation, what we might have missed. Today, we're going to be talking about human energetics, which is sort of a fascinating field of study that has mixed scientific support. I think it's becoming more and more mainstream, but it's still hard to support scientifically.
There's not a lot of research that has been done, so there's not a whole lot of evidence, I guess, except for anecdotal and then just based off your own experiences. I think they are trying to come up with some like energy screening machines now, like cameras that can read your chakras. and tell you if they're out of alignment and show you what happens before and after. I don't know if there's really anything to that. I have never used one, but people are trying. I think, all of the research is really going to kind of like modern medicine, and this is more of like a supplement, something extra bonus that you can give to yourself to help you recharge or bring, open up another aspect of your living experience.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people who will get into it after, but some of these practices are ancient and some of them are brand new. People like Joe Dispenza are really trying to tie the human energetics movement to things like neuroplasticity, and is rooted in science, right? But it's the practices, attaching the practices to the outcome is something that he's really committed to in a way that some of these other, I guess, spiritualists over time have not done before. And I think it's really catching fire now because he's able to connect sort of the science to the practice.
Right. Like he is able to give concrete evidence of what is happening to your brain, while you're in the process of meditation and showing you real-time changes, which I think is really helpful. And it's something that I always really wanted to pull for, like having a deep scientific understanding. And now I think I've completely flipped on that. And I have just learned to realize that I don't have to have some concrete explanation for what's happening. I can experience it and allow it and let it happen. And I don't feel like I need to have an answer anymore. But it's helpful, I think, because I was so kind of skeptic at one point with these things. Joe Dispenza was like the perfect opening for me to enter this space.
He's like a gateway drug to human energetics.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that's what he wants. I think that's kind of like what he's going for. He's like trying to be like, it's okay if you're rational. Like you can still be rational and follow these practices. And I can show you why it's rational to do it, which, I think is very helpful. Other people have, I think, attempted something like this before, but I think his focus on the brain is what makes it different. Like people were trying to photograph chakras and things like that, like decades ago. But he can show changes in brain chemistry, which I think is...
Well, they're also taking, they're taking blood labs and like stool samples and checking what's happening in the gut. I mean, they're checking everything. It's not even only brain now. Like he has universities working with him, research teams on site at these events. So it's definitely like a very, very helpful way to tie in the two worlds.
So before we get started on the deep dive on this, I was wondering what is either the best thing that happened to you this week or something bad that happened that you overcame and how you overcame
it? This week is this. This is my good thing. And then I think this is a little bit of both. Number one, I'm not, and I've spoken about this before, I'm really not very comfortable being, on screen or talking or very public. So the negative thing that I had to overcome was that kind of limiting mindset. And here I am with you. I'm so happy to be here. And that is the best thing of this week. And I also wanted to share, I think I might have shown you this little synchronicity that happened when we were talking about doing the podcast, and I was like digging through old boxes. I don't remember what I was. I think I was looking for the notebooks that we used to write to each other. And I found these two pictures of the night. I think this is like the original night of Say Something Serious when we were like laughing so hysterically we couldn't pull it together. And we're like, quick, say something serious. Like, come on, get it together. And I found these little gems of you and me.
That's us. Oh my
little
God.
babies. And
like 16,
it was right
20
before,
years ago.
Yeah. More than 20 years ago. It was right before you were saying, I'm not shaming my age. I'm not. Right before you said, let's name it Say Something Serious. And I thought that was such a sweet little synchronicity. Like I just stumbled on these.
Say Something Serious. Yeah.
And here we are. Anyway, that's my...
You and I have always been super psychically connected.
Yeah.
which I think is also been a gateway drug to our spirituality, is that like trying to understand how we could be states or worlds apart and still feel connected and like know if the other one was going through something or know if we needed to call the other person, like that. What do they call that? ESP?
I guess so. It just feels so natural. It's like not even, it feels like it's not even a thing. Does that make sense? I'm just like, we just do that. But
Yeah.
we have that, and your sister has that too. Kelly
Yeah.
definitely has that. Like anytime something weird, she'll text me the weirdest thing, like out of the blue. Oh, how do you know?
We're always accusing each other of diming each other out. Because if me and you are talking about something, Kelly will text you. And if you're talking to Kelly about me, I'll text one of you and you're like, did Kelly call you?
No, but I know. I'm like, I know Erin didn't tell you, so this is weird. Like, come on. And she's like, yeah. But I'm like, same for you. Any, like, just random stuff. But it just feels like our norm.
Yeah. I'll like wake up like extremely angry at your husband. And then for no reason, haven't talked to him in months. And then you'll call me and be like, I was in a fight with Sean this morning. And I'm like, it was in my dreams. I was mad at him in my dreams.
Yeah. Yep.
I love that. I love that.
Me too.
Let's see. My good thing was I had some friends over on Sunday and we made vision boards.
Yay.
Which was super fun to do like as a party. And it was nice. It gave me a lot of clarity about what I'm looking for in the next year. Obviously this podcast was on there, which we are making happen right now. I'm already achieving
Doing
my
it.
vision board goals. And bad. I don't know if anything really bad happened to me this week. I have been trying to make some lifestyle changes. And one interesting thing that I've been trying, I think it's slightly in the vein of like the advice that Joe Dispenza gives, but also who's a kind of like, so he's a little bit of a weirdo, but he's like famous for optimizing the human experience.
Like
that
Tony
guy?
Robbins?
Kind of, but he's like the guy that tells everybody to like take magnesium every morning. He's just like
I don't know. I
cold
don't
plunge guy. It's like a really intense sort of, he's mostly for men, but like how to like be the best alpha human, whatever guy. But
no idea.
anyway, I saw something that he did where they were talking about like how to change your brain by changing your body first. And so I've been doing this weird thing for a couple of days where I sit in a different chair when I drink my coffee in the morning. So I signal to my body that today is different from other days.
Yeah, this is really in line with kind of what Joe Dispenza is about, of like, be your creator. Don't just follow the same routine in the same place and the same thing. Like, signal to your brain, right? It's time. I'm in control here today. We're going to do something different.
Right. So yeah, exactly. So it is like that Joe Dispenza, like break the program, like don't do the program. I've been trying that in slight ways, and I've been starting every day by like sitting in a totally different place in my living room to have my coffee. It's actually really worked. Like I'm able to sustain making better and different choices throughout the day because I'm starting by telling my body that like today is not like all the days before. And it's been really helpful.
I love that. My life is chaos. I never drink my coffee in the same place. I drink my coffee walking around. Maybe I should try sitting down.
Yeah, that will change your program.
We'll touch base on that next week.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Right. Let's dive into human energetics.
Okay.
So I did a little research and I wanted to like sort of take it back to the pioneers first.
Okay.
I discovered through my research that like Reiki is Japanese. It's an ancient Japanese art. Tai Chi is the Chinese version of that, right? Like energy, body energetic
work.
Right.
So Ki is the Japanese word for energy. Chi would be the Chinese, and then prana would be like the more yogic, like Indian.
Right? And they basically came up with the chakra. Yes. the Indians. Now you practice Reiki.
Yes, which is also based off the chakra system, but that's a little tricky because there's not like 100% agreement on how many chakras there are. We with Reiki follow the 7 chakra energy system. But there are more, right? Like there are more in different places. Those I think are like the main energy centers of the body.
Okay. What was your first foray into human energetics?
I love this because, I always feel like I'm telling you, I was so cynical. Like I didn't believe any of this stuff. And you're like, that's not how I remember you. I remember you were always like curious and open. And I was thinking about that, like leading up to this podcast. And when I was a teenager, going to therapy, getting help for my anxiety and stuff like that, I did not want to take medication. So my therapist had suggested to me, why don't you try acupuncture? And I was like, I think 15. I went and I loved it. And so I used to go, every week or every other week just to like give myself that little extra feeling of balance. And I remember having like a cassette tape of like a full body scan that I used to do at night before going to bed. So I'm like, oh my God, I've actually been doing this for so much longer. It's always been in there, I think, for a very long time. Acupuncture was my gateway, I think, into energy. And I still to this day love it. Yeah. Okay. What about you?
I would say in a serious way, again, therapy. I had a therapist, psychotherapist. Again, I was really like not trying to find alternatives to medication. I did take medication for like most of my childhood and then into my early adult life. And I'd been off it for a while and really trying to like face down my shit. And I had a really cool psychotherapist who said, I have a friend who was a psychotherapist and now is a shaman. And I think you should go see her.
Pathway?
Yeah, I think you're on the psychotherapist to
the shaman
pipeline for sure.
I think that's a real thing.
She was a real pioneer in that. This is probably 15 years ago, and I went to see her, and she laid me down on a bed and chanted to whoever she was chanting to. I think my memory is like that it was very like Native American. I guess that's shamanism. There's different kinds, but she must have been a Native American shaman. And I had some really profound experiences of like feeling energy being sucked out of my body, like uncontrollable shaking and breathing and crying and convulsing during these healings that she was giving me. It was a lot. Again, there was like this nice pipeline or nice, because she was a psychotherapist, she had the language, and I had been in therapy for at least 10 years at that point. She had this language to reach me where she like, it wasn't so unfamiliar. I mean, the part, burning the whatever, what is it called?
The moxa, right? Did she use the moxa or the palo santo?
Palo Santo. She would like burn that and ask the different, the West and the South and the East and whatever to join us or whatever. That part was new to me, but the way that she would be like, do you know how old you were? Like, I want you to go to this place. Can you look down at your shoes? What do your shoes look like? Now that you've seen your shoes, do you know how old you are? Like that sort of process was something I had done in therapy through hypnosis, which I had done before the energy healing, but taking it that next step of then like basically locating the trapped trauma inside my body and then sort of giving me an exorcist to remove it. That was my first experience of that kind.
Yeah. So this was not teenage years. This was more like in 20s?
In my 20s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It would have to be. I mean, even here's the thing that, it's great that we have like YouTube and things like that now, and so much information is like easily accessible. But these things are expensive, like acupuncture, shamanic healing. Like I saw that it's expensive. It's expensive to explore energetic healing. You know what I mean? Especially back then. Now we have some other resources, like you can. I think we're going to talk about the emotion code a little bit today, which is like a book
Yeah.
where you can do energetic. Like it really makes energetic healing accessible. But seeing these specialties, it's not like something insurance would ever cover.
Right.
Like seeing an
Yeah.
acupuncturist, seeing a shaman, like these things cost hundreds of dollars an hour. And you
Well,
have
yeah.
to
And I feel like
be,
it's just getting more and more expensive at a rapid pace because there's more interest in it now. I think everybody's kind of tired of the standard medical system and everyone's looking for something else. Or maybe that's just the circle of people that I surround myself with, right? Sometimes I forget. It's like my experience of what I'm seeing. But I do feel like that a lot of people who I'm surprised to hear are like, oh, Reiki, like, yeah, let me come. I want to try that, And I'm like, oh, really? Okay, sure.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it's definitely more accepted. And I do think that people are I think it's worth the money. Don't get me wrong. Like really, really helps. But it is like, it's a bar. It's a barrier to entry. And I think that it's good that there are, and we'll talk about today, ways that you can access this kind of human energetics thought, and people that you can watch on YouTube, books you can read, practices you can try. Even if you can't go to professional healers, because that stuff like 15, 20 years ago, the internet wasn't what it was today, what it is today. And you really had to go to these experts to do it. And I'm glad that now people have other paths to explore that, because I do think it's like really critical to, especially healing trauma.
I think one just like helpful little thing that I'm noticing is that there are a lot of groups now. So that does make it more affordable, like a Reiki group or like a sound healing group where it's like, $20 to go for the hour. And it isn't there are going to be a lot of other people around. So, if you're not comfortable with that, that's a little tricky. But it is actually kind of nice to heal in the context of a group of others who are trying to do the same thing. That's one way it can be accessible, is like look for those groups, sound healing things or Reiki groups or yin yoga, something like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I used to do it in my like wicked early 20s, even maybe younger, like 19. I joined this meditation group with all these like adults. It was just like, I always ended up in like weird
Amazing.
situations. Yeah. And we would meditate together, and some of the people in the group were psychics. And so like afterwards, they would tell me what was in my meditations, like what was happening in my mind. And it was it was validating, right? Like, cause you go into these spiritual spaces and you're like, to this day, whenever I encounter any sort of spiritualist, guru, practitioner, whatever, I do a split screen, and part of my brain stays completely open to what they're saying. And then part of my brain is like, if I was their psychotherapist, what kind of personality disorder would I be diagnosing them with? So when I'm done with the experience, I decide, like, is this person speaking to God, or is this person a megalomaniac? And I think it's really like, it could be either. Whenever you meet anybody in this space, I think it's important to try to figure out if they are truly, truly in touch with the spirit world, or they are truly, truly coping with a personality disorder.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so interested, obviously, in what people have to say who are like psychic. I don't know why I shook my hand, but
Psychic. We do believe in psychics, for the record.
I do, absolutely. I mean, psychic, right? It's like soul connected. It's not like it's actually doesn't seem like that much of a stretch. That of course we can connect if we make the effort. Now, some people come in with like a much stronger version of that gift, but I do observe how they communicate what it is they're trying to communicate. And like we've always talked about, like someone who's like, I know for a fact that this is the way and this is what's going to happen. And like that, I'm like, I don't believe you. Like, it's just not, I don't. And yeah, I've had some really interesting
psychic experience. Yeah, I have too. Like I've seen psychics that I think are really, really connected. And I've seen psychics that were scam artists and who were, I think, taking advantage of me and the people that they see, like exploiting people.
Yeah, when you were younger, I feel like that happened, definitely.
Yeah, I think anybody searching for answers, especially who's struggling with their own mental health, with anxiety, with depression, you're looking for answers. And there's something real gross about people willing to exploit that. That being said, I would say over 50% of the people that I saw, I think were legit and really did help me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can't sort of be completely open to this stuff because there is some of it that doesn't come from a good place, I think, honestly.
Yeah, I remember two funny things. Like one is that I remember when I was young, I brought my mom to one and she told us we had black karma and she would clear it for $400. You know, and like, I was like, bye. Okay. That's not a thing. Thanks. But then also I had one experience recently where it was like a little bit of both. Like she told me some things that were like kind of weirdly specific. And then also there was some stuff that I was like, this is too much for me. Like some personality stuff, you know? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to take it all with a grain of salt. I mean, which I do of everything anyways, but it was a little bit of both where like she definitely said some spot on very specific stuff and then also spilled over in like a lot of her personality. It was intense.
I think that's a good gateway to, you and I got into something called the emotion code, which was a system created by Dr. Bradley Nelson. He wrote a book about it. And we sort of got into it for a while. And I think that like there is truth in there, right? Like basically he takes a chart of emotions and then places in the body and through intuitive or energetic practices helps you determine what the emotion is and where it's trapped in your body, and then gives you a mechanism to release it. And I do think that the system on some level works in the sense that for us, at least, we had the experience of feeling like it really identified some stuff and helped us access memories and traumas that maybe we weren't aware were still very present in our bodies and in our experiences. But then I think and it may be possible that you need to do this to sell books, right? Is that there's a certainty to the way that these people talk about their systems. Like, and then it's over. And he's like, you'll find it, you'll release it, then you're cured. It's like, you'll find it. We were able to determine,
we found it
through our own practice that we found it. Yeah, we found it again, and we found it again. But to say that is you're gonna become a purely white light,
like it's gonna solve all of your problems.
Exactly.
Yeah, all of your emotional energy that's trapped will be released. I think it is. I love the emotion code. It's such a beautiful tool, especially like when you're stuck and feeling like I don't know what this is about, right? It's such a great way to identify like what is blocking me here, like what is coming up. It's like it will bring you to a specific emotion. It can bring you to the location of where it is. It can bring you to the time. Now, like, I feel like we're saying this like this is all completely normal and that everybody's going to understand what we're talking about. But do you remember how much of a stretch it was when I first read the book? And I was like, what? The universal subconscious? Like, how does everybody know that this chart exists? And how can my energy, like, with the, like, what a stretch for my brain.
I was super
now it feels
skeptical.
Normal.
Yeah, I was super skeptical of it. And I thought, I do believe that we have access to super consciousness, and so there's a universal subconscious, and I do believe all that stuff. I still found it amazing, like the way that it works for people that haven't experienced it is it goes by numbers and letters, so you actually don't know while you're making the yes or no choices through this process where you're going to end up. It's not like they're like,
you're not looking at the chart, right?
They're not like, is it your leg or your arm? Like, no, they're like, is it in column A or column B? And then in column B, is it
row 1, row 2? Yeah. We can do, if you want to, we'll do like a little demonstration after.
Totally.
If you're up for it, I'll do one on you or I'll do one on me. It doesn't matter. Something mild, nothing heavy. You guys don't need this.
You don't really get a choice. That's the other thing that's
we will
interesting
cry.
about it.
Guaranteed, we will cry on this podcast. Not today, hopefully.
Today. Not today, Satan. But it was really powerful. And we started doing it. You started doing it. And then I started doing it. And then we started doing it on each other. And then we started roping people in. We started.
Oh my God. Remember the night at your house? We had like, I don't want to throw out names, but we had, multiple people.
We just dragged all these people into our trauma processing, our new trauma processing fad.
How is this our pastime? We're going to heal our trauma. We're going to release trapped emotional energy and cry.
It's more amazing that we get other people to show up for a party that we build that way. We're like, guys, you guys want to work through trauma on Friday? And our friends are like, yes.
Yeah, we do. Everybody shows up.
There. Yes.
And actually, like, what's funny is anyone I tell that to, they're like, really? I want to come. Like, I'm like, really? Like, I don't know. It's so fun.
I know.
It is.
We're also very picky about who we let come. I don't think so, Debbie. Let you know if we do it again.
Poor Debbie.
Poor Debbie. The best was, okay, so just to illuminate, like, we uncovered a lot of stuff, like car accidents we didn't think were still affecting us from our childhood, and, just really specific childhood stuff that we thought, I thought
like
that I had
we
processed.
were in therapy, we worked through that, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
That I did not think would come up. But the best was we did it on my dog.
This was like the saddest, sweetest, and funniest experience ever. And I met him, Juju.
I had this beautiful, beautiful Rottweiler named Juju, who was just an emotional wreck. Like this, from the day I got him, he was 6 years old when I got him, and he was unable to get his shit together his whole life with me. Like he was so upset. And
he was so helpless.
He was so helpless. He was obsessed with his mom. He was such a good man. But he cried like all the time. Like if he wasn't sleeping, he was crying. He was always upset. And I just like ran around like a psychopath, like trying to please him all the time. So we're like, let's get into what's wrong with Juju. So we do the emotion code on Juju, and we get that he has forlorn in his sexual organs from the age of 6. Okay. And I die because
I remember being like, well, this is a little strange. Like, this is a little strange. Maybe we're off. Right.
Right. Like and I was like, immediately like, no, because Juju was a rescue. And in at least the state that I live in, if you rescue a dog, if you adopt a dog, it has to be fixed. Like you have to take its testicles. And Juju had not been fixed at his previous family, which meant that when he was 6 years old, they took his balls and then like 3 days later gave them to me. And then he was so traumatized by that experience that is why homeboy was so upset all the time. But that was like, to me, like how Juju had very little trauma in his life. He had a pretty good family before me that just, I think, lost him because of a moving situation. I certainly gave him a cushy life. He had exactly one trauma in his whole life, and it was in his
it showed
sexual
right up.
organs. 6 years old. And then I was like, you can't argue with that. The emotion code works. It even works on dogs.
Yeah.
So anybody out there who's trying to figure out what's wrong with their cat, their dog, I would pick up the book and try it out, because
It is great
does...
for animals. And he does this, Bradley Nelson does this work with animals, horses, and all, like, dogs, cats, all that stuff. So it's mind blowing. I hear us talking about it and it seems so normal to me now, but I know that me 3 years ago would have been like, what are these girls talking about?
Yeah, a little bit insane. What was your most profound emotion code, or one of the more profound emotion code experiences?
Do you know what's funny? I think it was like I had one that just kept showing up over and over and over. And it was like, I guess just for me, a moment of like, how did I not know this was here? Like, and then it became so clear. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been holding on to this, and I have some like work to do around it, emotionally, mentally, energetically, whatever. But like and I think like where we hit a wall with this work is that, like, it's, you release the emotion energetically through like running your hand over your governing meridian, which is like another kind of like flowing energy system in your body, to release this trapped emotional energy. But there's still a mindset that's attached to these experiences that that I still had to work through. It didn't just disappear. It was like, oh, that energy, there was like this beautiful awareness, I feel like, that I got from it that I might not have ever stepped on or like gotten into. And then I was able to really do some work around it. It just brought me to like I guess, figuring like a deeper level of self-discovery.
Yeah, I think that our biggest criticism of the emotion code process is that there is no processing. Like, part of his system is like, you identify it, you see it, you energetically move it, and then you let it go. And while I do believe that that is possible, I don't think it's realistic for most people. You know what I mean? Like, Joe Dispenza tells it, like, you could wake up and change everything about your life by changing your brain. You could. But is running a magnet over your head going to do that kind of profound change that's going to allow you to really? I don't think so. Like, we immediately, when we started using this process, added a layer of processing. So yes, we would let the energy go, but then we would talk about it. Okay, like, what is that bringing up for you? What do you think is unresolved there? Because to me, I think it would show back up. Like, it would, you know what I mean? Like, the energy, whatever energy is, it's not.
It's a part of a whole system.
Right.
Like, we're not a body of only energy. We're a body of emotions. We're a body of, like, like mental state and physical. Like, it's all connected. It's not just this one thing. I think you can address this thing and it can bring you to another level of like, what might be next? How has this been holding you back? How can you use this knowledge to help you grow or move forward with your life? I also come from, I'm a therapist, right? Like, I come from more of a perspective of like, I don't want to get rid of these parts of myself. I don't want to shun these parts of myself. I want to get to know them. I want to understand them. Why were they helpful? How can I let these parts know it doesn't have to be this way? Right?
Yeah.
Not like,
I think
release, you're gone. Like, low self-worth.
Right. It's a little,
and like, that's not what
dismissive.
I want.
Right. It's dismissive of often these things. Yes, they get trapped in your body. I think I believe that. But I think that they also have created neural pathways in your brain, having been stuck there for so long. And if you're not addressing both of those, that energy is just going to build back up, maybe in a different place, maybe in the same place. But you're not going to be able to actually be free of whatever that trauma was simply by banishing it, which is kind of what that book concludes, I think, and where I think it hits its limitation.
I think it helps a lot of people. And I think, Erin, like the thing about energy work, I think in general, is that only so much kind of like healing can occur. I don't even know if I love the word healing, but like I will use it just because it's the best word to use right now. But only so much healing can occur that the person is ready for. Right. So like maybe this has been so transformational for people who are not ready to do some like deeper inner work, but it's like, oh, like that was a part and that's moved and I feel great now. Like, I think we are just people who want to do we want to do the work. We want to know more. We want to explore deeper. Like, not everybody is in a safe place where they can do that. Not everybody is it's a privilege, right? To be able to like go to therapy and pay a therapist and sit there for an hour and like explore your deeper thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. Like, not everybody believes that that's right for them or whatever. But I think there are surely plenty of people that this has been transformational for. And I think it's a beautiful tool. But I think you and I are always looking at everything and saying like, well, what else? What more can we take from this or learn from this? Or how can we expand this and use it in a different way?
How can we be freer? It's more of like an awareness that you get from this specific practice, in my eyes.
Yeah, for me, that's
more awareness, less healing. And I think it can be healing to have awareness, but if you're just trying to identify where it is and what it is, I think the emotion code is a good low barrier to entry way to explore that with yourself without spending a ton of money, right? Which I think a lot of people need.
I mean, he provides this worksheet and you can read the book and teach yourself how to do it. Like, it's not, you can find a practitioner to do it for you, but you can do this on yourself. And it is. But again, like I said, like I definitely come from a place of identifying these things and being curious about them, not identifying them and wanting to push them away and never speak of them again. You know?
Mm. Which is, let's try to tie in real quick. It's not exactly related because it's more mind-body connection stuff. But like things like When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate or The Body Keeps the Score, there is a scientific, I think, acceptance of the fact that our mind has an effect on our body and our body has an effect on our mind, right?
I mean, just think about like, where do you feel your emotions? You don't feel them in your mind, you feel them in your body. Like, I'm scared, like, oh my gosh, where do you feel it? Like, your heart is pounding, right? You get red in the face or you can't breathe. Like, your emotional experience lives in your body. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard people talk about it like, you know, especially like Joe Dispenza, that the mind creates a chemical, which is called an emotion. And that emotion gives feedback to your body. And then your body gives feedback to your brain. And it's sort of like this long cycle that you can either disrupt or you can let occur over. I have a fun fact. Okay. I've been meaning to tell you. Did you know that Botox makes you less empathetic over time?
That's so interesting.
So for the same reason, you know, like people, I'm sure you've heard this all your life. I have anyway. That like if you're in a bad mood and you smile, you'll get in a better mood. Like your body gives that feedback to your brain, which creates the happy chemicals, right? In the opposite way, if you're no longer able to show concern, less of the chemicals of concern and empathy will enter your brain over time. So like when you do Botox, you basically can't frown, right? Like the muscles in your face are actually giving your body chemical in that cycle that we're talking about where you're like,
it makes so much sense. And that's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that fun fact.
Isn't that scary? Yeah. I read that and I was like, what? And I was like, at first I was like, I guess like you can't show empathy, but why would you have less empathy? And then I
Because
was
it's
like,
like that
actually,
movement
like,
in your body is connected to the emotional response.
and the hormones and the chemicals that your body is producing. So if you're no longer able to be like, oh, you won't feel it to the same level. And if you don't feel it to the same level for a long enough period of time, you literally become less empathetic.
That's so sad. And then, like, what about the people that get it all around their jaw and their smile and they can't, like, Megan Trainor, right, recently came out and was like, help, I got too much Botox and I can't move my face. I can't smile. Like, imagine the people that can't smile.
Right? They'll be less happy over
Yeah.
time, which is crazy, but ties into what we're saying here, which is that, like, your body is, it's all a cycle that's happening between your body, your brain, and your emotions and your thoughts. And somewhere in there is energy.
You know, there's a lot of disagreement in, like, the therapy world about where it starts, and it doesn't really matter, but they're definitely in sync with each other and in a deep relationship.
And probably prior to 10 years ago, therapy was almost exclusively dedicated to the mind. Like, they
When
were
I was in
not.
college, it was like CBT was booming. Like, taking that class, I remember
It's
being
cognitive
excited.
behavioral therapy for people that don't know.
Sorry. That was 14 years ago. Like, you know, I remember that being like, change your thoughts, change your life, right?
Yes.
That was it. And it's really powerful. I still use it on myself. I still use it with other people. Like, it is absolutely a wonderful tool for the toolbox. It's just not the only tool. And you don't want to be dismissive of what else is in there, you know?
Right. And energy work is basically, if you, instead of thinking it's a line from mind to body, how you think affects how you feel. If you start to see it as a cycle, you can decide to intervene at different points in the cycle. And I think what's interesting about human energetics is that they're saying, let's start in the energy field. Let's start in the body and see if that helps the mind. Because so many people feel like us, like I did so much therapy, and it wasn't, I worked it all out. I understood it. I rationalized it, but I could not feel better until I stopped trying to think my way into feeling better and started to use physicality and energy to make my mind better. By deciding to start that process on a different part of the loop, I was able to heal much faster and get better results than I had from just the therapy processing.
And even something as simple as exercise is good for that, right? Like, like Joe Dispenza says, doesn't he say, let the body be the mind? Like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm going
You're
off
more,
track, but
you're more of a Dispenza. Do you guys have a name for yourselves? A Penza?
I don't know.
Dispenza?
Well,
Stan?
so it's funny. I am definitely a fan of his work. And it's like what brought me into being more open. But I had met someone recently and I said, I'm going to his retreat. And she's like, oh, Dr. Joe's the best. You know, I think that's like what they're like. Oh,
Dr. Joe.
I'm just like,
Okay.
you know, I call him Joe Dispenza, but they're like Dr. Joe. We'll see. Maybe when I come back from the retreat in March, you'll see what I call him. Might
like
change.
me and Dr. Joe, Jojo, whatever. See how familiar
Me
you
and
get.
Carrie I call him DJ. I'm like, when are we going to DJ?
That's adorable. So what do they call those?
Dr. Joe, right? Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us. We're really hoping by starting a podcast that we will also be able to have a parasocial relationship with the public, which is what Joe Dispenza has, right? Can you define parasocial as a therapist?
No.
Let me look it up.
That's not even in my vocabulary.
Parasocial
and you're frozen.
is it's okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Hold on, I'm going to look one up.
Parasocial. I've never even heard that.
No. Parasocial relationships are one-sided relationships where an individual becomes emotionally invested in or attached to a person they don't interact with directly. These relationships are often with public figures such as celebrities, influencers, or fictional characters. The key aspects of a parasocial relationship are that they're one-sided, they're media-driven, and they give the illusion of intimacy without feedback. So like anybody that we follow, anybody that you're really like a fan of, you have a parasocial relationship with.
I do.
We all do with somebody. I mean, that's the times we live in.
I'm like,
right?
Joe Dispenza.
But like, right. But at least you're still calling him by his full name. Like people that are on the Dr. Joe wagon, they've gone full parasocial. I mean, I'm sure there's a whole group of people that call him Joe.
We're still formal. We're still in our formal stages.
Yeah, you guys are still in your formal. But once you go to the retreat, I don't know. Could be JoJo.
Let's see what I'm like in March when I get back.
Yeah. I have a little
I still want
tattoo.
you to come.
I know. I'm thinking about it. All right. I want to talk about somatics before we go. Do you know a lot about somatics?
I mean, I think it's woven in a lot into the EMDR process, like, you know, the paying attention to it. But I'm not like a somatic therapist doing the somatic movements.
Okay.
Like Peter Levine type of thing you're talking about?
Yes. The polyvagal theory and like, it's basically like there are all different ways to come about human energetics, right? Like there's Reiki, which is basically like somebody else moving the energy around your body. If you're like going to a Reiki practitioner, right?
Yeah, but it's not even really the person. The whole belief behind the Reiki is that like the person giving the Reiki is kind of like channeling the energy, but the energy itself is what does the work.
But it's
not
external.
The practitioner.
But it's externalized, is my point.
Yeah.
Like you're not giving it to yourself, right? And then there's these like emotion code. They're like self-fulfilling things where you're trying to find the energy and move it within yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And then somatic therapy is more like actually using a physical movement a lot of time to like literally work it out of your body, kind of in the way that like Tai Chi works. Yeah. You're trying, like they're like, yes, we're moving the energy, right? It's like it is a actual physical practice of moving energy around in or out of your body.
I don't have enough, honestly, info to give a strong opinion about somatic therapy. I've never had it done. I've never done it, never been trained in it. It's definitely interesting though, and I think it has it's a lot of movement, obviously.
Before we finish up, do you want to do like an emotion code? Oh, yeah, your pendulum. So in the book, you can use rocking. Some people do like the energetic arm thing.
The arm muscle testing. You could do the hand muscle testing, which I think I'm getting better at it, but I always don't trust it in the way that I trust the pendulum.
Yeah, I don't think a pendulum is even like suggested. It was something you and I came up with where we were like, right?
He does mention it in the book.
Oh, does he?
The pendulum. But I think he usually does the muscle testing. You know, you can do the sway testing, which is so easy. And what a interesting thing to do. So do you want me to do one for you or me? We can ask the universal subconscious to keep it light.
You know what we didn't do? We didn't pull any cards.
Let's pull some.
Pull some cards before we finish.
I forgot. We got wrapped up.
I don't know. We got wrapped up.
We didn't get stuck. I guess that's a good thing.
This is interesting. I think, have you ever used energetic work to make a decision?
Yes.
These cards are talking about like, if you're unable to make a decision, how would you use human energetics to sort of get to the root of what you truly want or what should truly happen?
I think there's a couple ways. One, like doing the meditation and Reiki thing settles my mind so that I can get out of the thought loop of like, what if, or, whatever, and just try to get more of a sense, like a feeling. It's just quieting the mind, like using my energy, calming my energy to get to a place where I can connect with myself better. That's one way for sure. And then using the pendulum. I've definitely asked the pendulum questions about things where I'm like, I'm not so sure. Should I do this or not?
Can you give me an example? Like a decision that you helped? The podcast? You asked the pendulum?
Yeah. I mean, I was really torn about this because, like, I'm not I'm not big on social media. I live a pretty quiet life. I don't really want to be on social media. Um, and I'm a therapist, so I feel like I don't like people knowing much about me. I feel like I don't want to cloud their experience, right, of therapy or whatever. But I just kept feeling like I do want to do it, and I'm not sure. And so I just asked her, should I? And I said yes. Good yes.
Love it.
What about you?
Awesome. Trying to think. I mean, I think I use more tarot to I have trouble getting yes or no's when I've tried the what do they call those?
Oh, did you try those?
Dowsing rods. Yeah, I did that for a
Yeah.
while. I tried it out.
Ooh, we should have tried that. We
have-
should try that on here.
I don't know. I wasn't great at it. I don't, the pendulum even like takes a lot of focus. As somebody like my body, you really have to like settle to do things like pendulum, to do things like dowsing. Like otherwise you can't trust the outcome. And if I can't trust the outcome, it's not really a helpful endeavor for me. But I've been trying to do that more. I'm still learning to be in my body. I think we all are.
Yeah.
And trying to learn to trust, like when you have anxiety or depression, the idea that you should trust your feelings is kind of like hard to swallow, because if you trusted what you were feeling, you wouldn't leave your bed or your house ever. You know what I mean? Like this whole, like, you should trust yourself, but it's like, when I'm living in fear, like I can't trust, I wouldn't do anything. If I trusted the feeling in my body, right?
The quieting the mind part is really helpful. And it's not always trusting your feelings, but like your feelings are information. They're telling you something. If you're not feeling great, it might be that like, I need to do something a little bit different, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a process for me. Let me see if there's anything else. It's telling us to dive a little bit deeper into what having negative energy or trapped trauma can do to your health.
Oh, so interesting.
We didn't get into too much, but that's really like when the body says no, and that line of thinking, which is basically, if you deny yourself long enough, you will get an autoimmune disorder or a disease, or they're
right.
like,
they always say like dis-ease leads to disease, right? But then there's the whole victim blaming, which I feel like, I know it's not the intention of that body of work, but I think it's definitely the way some people feel. It's such a hard one. It's such a hard one. I can't say that like I know anything for sure, I
think it's true that, if you feel bad for long enough, you will get sick. That's, on the other hand.
Well, and like living in a heightened state of stress, right? Like if your body is shooting out stress hormones 24/7, your body's not functioning properly. It can't do its job.
Well,
right. It can't like rest and digest if you're shooting out cortisol because you think you're in a like life or death situation.
Right.
It's tricky.
It is. And it is hard. Like, I think I don't want to invade your privacy here, but like you've had really mixed, like there are things that I personally believe that you healed in your body through energy work. But then there was that additional element of, there is a toxicity to telling somebody who's not well that if only they change their mindset enough, they would be well. Because it is
right. Like, if only you can meditate for 6 hours every day and like
right.
live on celery juice. Yeah. I mean, I have trouble with it. Yes, I do believe in the power of energetic work. I also believe in the power of the mind. Like I don't think any one thing that I did to feel better is only like energy work or only the work of that. Like, I just think there's like a really strong combination of things that I do to take care of myself now that I didn't before, that are really helpful and working out in some ways. In some ways, some ways I still have stuff, but I don't know. I can't say I know. I can't say I know. Definitely weird things have gotten better though. Like, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. All right. Why don't you do an emotional code on me?
Hold on, because I'm just thinking about this, like diving into the energetic release thing, right? Do you remember the first time I did Reiki on you
At
in
your
Portsmouth?
house? Yeah.
Like, that was something, right? You don't remember?
I
The hip pain?
remember the hip pain. I remember feeling it. I remember being exhausted when it was over. Like, I'd never been so tired in my life.
Yeah.
And we hadn't even started partying yet that weekend.
But there was some shift, right? Like, it's like it didn't disappear. It wasn't gone forever, but like there was some movement.
Yeah. It felt like there was more. I have chronic hip pain, and it felt like there was more space in there.
Yeah.
Something that had felt very like tight. It was really like oddly uncomfortable is what I remember. Like, I felt, and I felt like this a little bit with the shamanic healing. I remember too. It was like I wanted to jump out of my skin. Like, I think that's why so many people that practice these things feel like I don't need the data. I could feel it.
Yeah.
Like in Reiki, like, you're not touching me. You were not like doing anything.
I think I probably was gently.
You might have like put your hands on me, but like, it was like,
there was
this,
no
right?
Yeah, no, it's just.
And you feel like an unbelievable level of energy, like tingling, burning. For me, it was like, it's like that feeling.
You're not
that
selling my services here. No one else has ever said that, though. I wish you would have told me that you were feeling pain, because I would have stopped. But
it wasn't pain.
This is a thing.
It was like that
happens.
It was that feeling. Do you know when you need to stretch or you're going to yawn and you feel like this like big, like you need to make space inside of you for that energy? That's how it felt. It felt like my insides were being like stretched with energy, and that I needed to like move to create enough space for the energy that was there. I don't know how else to describe it, but it wasn't painful. I don't want people to think it was painful, but it was powerful. And to my point, that is why people, when people question, is there scientific evidence to any of these practitioners, any of these people that write these books or do this work?
Matter.
It's like, it doesn't matter, because the people right in front of you are saying, like, I'm having these incredible, profound experiences. Like, I can feel it from 10 feet away. I don't care if you have the science to explain that or not, because it's working. Right.
Yeah. I do think like pain is not a typical experience, or even that sensation. Like, I've definitely had people say like, oh, I felt it here. I felt something, or I saw something, or, whatever. But there are times when it can be painful. And I think obviously there's like usually just like layers and layers of deep trauma connected to that kind of stuff. Like, I know someone who had a personal experience where they were in so much pain. They asked the person to stop, and the person stopped and went like kind of like backed away from them. And the person on the table was like, please stop. Like, it's so bad. And she was like, I'm over here, I'm over here. But that is not in any way the typical. Mostly people are like, oh, I feel really relaxed, or I feel really good, or I feel more connected, or I feel more open and calm. That's the typical of like what I would hear.
Yeah, I think it depends, right?
Yeah.
I would say like a lot of my other experiences were also associated with the left leg. And I, the woman that I believe that I'm reincarnated, that I'm reincarnated as, died of a stroke that left her unable to use her left leg. And I think it's like multi-life trauma of like personal denial that I carry into this lifetime. And I think that's why every time there's a practitioner working on my left side, my left hip or my left leg, that experience is so powerful energetically because, like you said, it's a many layered issue. Now I sound like a complete crazy person, but welcome to the
No,
pod.
not at all. Welcome to the podcast. Well, I was thinking that's a great subject that we should talk about is past life regressions.
Yeah. Have you done some?
No.
Oh.
But like maybe we should go do them and then talk about it.
Oh, that would be fun. I would love that.
I know someone who does them, so maybe I'll go. We can do that
Yes.
for another day, for another pod. Okay.
Another pod.
So we're going to run out of time. Let me do this. You want me to do one
Okay.
for you? So usually when I do it, now I've been doing it so long, I like do it in silence, but I'll say it out loud so you guys get a little feel for what this is like. I want to hold it so that you guys can see it. So I'm going to ask the pendulum. First is my name, Mindy. So we see if we got a yes. Can you see that moving? Yeah. Just like a confirmation that the energy's on. Does Erin have a trapped emotion that we can identify today? Is this trapped emotion in column A? Is this trapped emotion in column B? Is this trapped emotion in an even number row? Is it in row 2? Is it in row 4? Okay, it's in row 4. So I need to pull up the chart. Do you want me to say what they are or do you want me to keep it to myself? You want a little discretion? Huh?
You can say it.
We're open here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this trapped emotion depression? Is this trapped emotion, keep it light, emotion code? Is this trapped emotion frustration? Is this trapped emotion indecisiveness? Yes. Strong yes. Okay. Is this trapped emotion in the part of a body that is in an even number row? No. Is it in an odd number? Is it row 1? Is it row 3? Is it row 5? Is it the kidneys? Is it the bladder? Yeah. So it's indecisiveness stored in the bladder. You want me to ask for more information?
Yeah, find out when it was trapped.
You're making me think of something, but okay. Did this emotion become trapped before the age of 10? No. Did it become trapped before the age of 20? Yes. Before the age of 15? 16? 16. Indecisiveness, like not.
Indecision trapped in my bladder at the age of 16.
I will say like where it ends up in the body is not really relevant always to what happened, if that makes sense. Like, was there a hard decision that you made when you were 16? How old were you when you came out?
I think 17.
15?
I think 17.
Okay. Were you not sure maybe? I'm like, now I'm stretching and reaching the
Yeah.
leg.
Maybe.
Not sure about.
Indecision when
like-
I was 16. Where were we living when I was 16?
You were in Ashland?
I know, but where
You were
were
in
we
Ashland.
living? Like that summer?
Like your dad's house and you were kind of around the corner from Alicia.
No, I
Right?
know where I was living. I mean, when I was 16 this summer, we spent every summer together. Where were we
Like, how
living?
am
I remember where I lived with my family, but
That's good.
were we on 13th Street? Were we in Edgartown? Were we? That was
Well, I know
was that
where you were living. I
16?
don't know where I was living. That's the sad reality. I think I was on 13th Street. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that could have been like the decision about whether or not to leave my mother's house and go to yours. That happened that year, right?
That did happen that year. Yeah.
And that was
Right? You were 16 and I was 17 or 18.
And that event, I would have died that night. I would have died that day. I was, and I had to decide that I wasn't going back. Which was a hard decision. But that was probably the biggest decision I made that year was to choose life.
Yeah. Like you didn't even know though. Like you knew it was going to be bad. You didn't know until
How bad?
later. How bad? I remember that. Wow. Want to clear it?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the first thing is like set your intention to clear it, like connect with it, set the intention to clear it. This is part of the emotion code. And then running your hand over the governing meridian 3 times. You did 3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You were froze for a minute. Okay. I'm going to ask if you shake it around a little bit. Shake around.
Shake my bladder.
Say something serious. Quick. I got to do this.
Okay. Say something. Say something serious. War.
I shake my bladder. Okay, hold on. All right. Did Erin clear the trapped emotion of indecisiveness from her? Yeah. I wish my camera was higher, but yeah, it was a yes. So that's
Fun.
that. That was like a, a light, not really a light enough one, but like we know that happened. That's how it works. It's an interesting tool. You can look up the emotion code and go like navigate yourself through the website, look up the chart, see how it works.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I have a lot of problems with my bladder. So it's like, it's not random,
I was
would not
thinking about
have
that. Once I said it, I was
connected
like,
it.
oh, like I remember like a couple years back that being a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a
But
surgery.
I didn't know that.
like-
And I'm not like looking at the thing as I go. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't, you don't know, right? This process makes the assumption that a lot of our health problems are related to specific traumas.
Yeah.
And
But think about it, like constriction, right? Like if you're tense and you're tight and you're constricting,
trying to-
like you're holding. So
right, and you can have problems that arise from that after years and years and years.
Over
I mean,
time.
those problems didn't come up for another 20 years.
right.
But if something was trapped in there, that could be why. I mean, you could do this for hours, right? And each one you could connect to some experience. And it's sort of like, again, one of those things like whether or not it's real or you make it real, it's still helpful because you're
Yeah, it's
accessing
like a
something that
Tool for
if somebody
exploration.
asks you what is trapped in your body from the age of 16 that covers this emotion, you are finding it in yourself and you're not inventing it, but you're confronting it. And we don't get many opportunities like that once real life starts to like
Right.
be
We're always like
egocentric
reacting
enough,
to the world around us. Yeah.
right, to be thinking about
just
like,
like a
oh, have I
moment.
processed this? Have I processed that? Well, I made the right decision that day. And now I have told
Yes, you
my
did.
body that I made the right decision. All right. Well, thank you for doing this.
I love you so much.
I love you
Thank you.
too. I can't wait for episode 2.
Me too. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.